starts at Annette's cabin at Depot Bay. Depot Bay is the one that brags of being the world's smallest harbor. She's bought a little cabin there and we're working on it, trying to get it fixed up. We get in the vehicle, go through the little hilly town of Depot Bay, which has a very small harbor. We're going across the bridge right now and we're heading south toward Newport. We're going to give the crabbing and clamming a try down at Newport, and hopefully we'll be able to get us a really good bowl of clam chowder and some crabs to go with it. We'll be driving from Depot Bay to Newport to do a little clamming and crabbing, and also it's a pretty drive down there. We go past the old lighthouse on Yaquina Head and then across the decorative old bridge across Yaquina Bay. Yaquina Bay is a very important seaport along the Central Oregon coast. Ships from all over the world come in here, and it's very important for fishing vessels. Since there's good jetties built up, it's one of the nicer bars to cross, although the ocean is dangerous and they still lose boats and men that walk their deck along Yaquina Bay. Ben steers us under the bridge, or we circle back under the bridge and then head out by the Marine Science Centers, where we're going to find us a little beach and see if we can catch some clams. With shovels and buckets in hand, we head down to the beach to try our luck at digging some of the bay clams, which make great clam chowder. We get down there and probe around looking for them for a little while. It's low tide, so we should be able to find some. Marge is going to try her luck at digging the cockle clams. You just rake them out of the mud since they don't go in very deeply. You just find a spot and start raking the mud, and pretty soon you'll hear that rake click, and then you check it, and part of the time you've got a clam. It looks like quite a bit of the time you have a clam, because Marge is getting a lot of them, as well as Julie. These are one of the better clams for making clam chowder, so I think we're in for a good bowl of clam chowder. After we dig our limit of clams, we back the boat down the boat ramp and launch it into Yaquina Bay. With the crab pots already loaded in the boat, we'll head down to the bay and see if we can attract a few crabs using a little bit of chicken meat for bait. Into the briny waters of Yaquina Bay goes Ben and Julie's boat. We're almost ready to get in and see if those crabs are going to be doing okay today. The crab pots are sitting there waiting for us to get out and bait them and toss them over the side, where we'll leave them set for sometimes 20 minutes or even longer to attract a few of the crabs that swim around on the bottom of Yaquina Bay. Carefully, Ben maneuvers us out of the boat basin out into the open bay. We can see the Yaquina Bay Bridge down below us, but we're going to go upstream since that seems to be the best bet for crabbing. And you're not really supposed to go far down below the Yaquina Bay Bridge because there's small craft warnings out, and we don't want to have to deal with rough conditions. Pleasure boats and commercial fishing boats as well. We steer right around the boat basin and out into the open waters of Yaquina Bay. We'll get our crab pots baited up and ready to go over as soon as we stop. It's always very interesting to see where some of these boats are from. Usually they have it written someplace on the boat, and so they're boats from everywhere in here. And they're pretty much at port today since it's rough sea conditions. They get the advanced word on their radio and pull into port and tie up there till the conditions look better. It's early in the year, so they're rough sea conditions quite a bit of the time. Past the boat basin, and then we can pull that throttle back and head up to a spot where it looks good for crabbing. We don't want real deep water, but it's got to be deep enough that the crabs are in there. So we think we know a spot, one up ahead. And so we'll run up there and give it a try. And if that spot doesn't work, then we'll move it to another spot. Some big research ships are tied up in here right now. They do research and mapping of the seas, and also they take pictures of the bottom of the ocean. And so they're in port right now doing some repairs and waiting for their next adventure at sea. So they spend a lot of time out at sea. Looks like we're not alone. Out here, there's somebody else there that's just pulled their crab pot, and they're throwing a bunch of crab out of it. You're only allowed to keep the large males that are at least 5 3/4 inches across the back, right behind the spine. And so, since they're catching crab here good, maybe we'll put our crab pots out somewhere near them. They're all baited and ready to go. We'll swing them out and drop them down to the bottom of the bay where those crabs will probably find them. Julie's lowering this one down, and then we'll put a buoy. Each of these buoys, each fisherman marks these buoys with a different color. That way you'll always know which are yours. Ben checks to see that everything is all go, and so we throw the crab pot buoy out and move on to the next one. After we get the pots out, then we circle back by and test them to see if we've caught some crabs. And it looks like there's some in there, only if they're large enough. Ben's got a measure that he'll check them out and see if they're keepers or not. And so if they're not keepers, they go. Time after time, one pot after another is raised up, and we try to get these crabs out. We're catching two types of crabs here. There's one that's the Dungeness crab, which is most often gone after by most people, and then there's the red rock Japanese rock crab, which is right here, and they've got real husky claws, and they wouldn't mind sticking those claws into you and giving you a good pinching. And they grab hold of the crab ring to where you can hardly get them free to either throw them out or keep them. They're an non-indigenous species. They're an invasive species, so you're allowed to keep any size of them and any sex. So we'll keep a few of them and take them home and cook them and eat them. They're just as good as any when it comes to eating. Julie's being kind of careful. She doesn't want to get pinched by one of those very husky pinchers. They have a crab block installed on hanging over the edge of the boat, so it makes it much easier to pull the pots. All you have to do is hook the rope on it and start pulling, and it lifts it right up from the briny depths of Yaquina Bay. Julie's having a little trouble getting it hooked on there, but once it's on there, it's just a matter of lifting it up.
I hope he is.
Yes, make sure it's female, male.
Yep. It's a male.
Normally you can tell them without even turning them over. The female have a higher arch on them.
There's a little red crab.
Our line.
And our line of them. Right here?
When you're ready to put it in, just put it in.
Ready? Okay. Put in another spot. Away from
It's starting to get slack tides.
blue one, an old one. Well, how we got? Oh, a bunch of babies. Bunch of babies. Darn.
Off to that but first.
He's brave though. Yeah, I'll say. Huh?
The person in the kayak must be really hungry for crab to be out here in that small a vessel. It looks like he's taken somewhat of a chance.
Retrieving the lost. Nope. Oh, there's a little crab. A rock crab.
That's all right. Where's the
Japanese. Just some Japanese crab.
Mosquito. Okay.
The tide has now changed, and the crabbing doesn't seem to be as good as it was a little while ago. But we had lost one of the crab pots and all the rope and everything, because when they bought the pot, the buoy wasn't attached. It looked like it was. And so when the tide changed, the rope floated to the surface and they retrieved it. Now that we have enough crabs for a crab feast, we'll go back to Annette's, boil some water, and process some crab. We chose to take the backs off the crab to cook them. It seems like the flavor might be slightly better when you do that. So we'll just pull the backs off and toss them in a pot to cook. They have cooked the clams a little enough to loosen them from the shell, so we'll take the clams out of the shell, just boil them a little while till they come loose, and then we can cut them up and have clam chowder. And then the crabs need to be cooked. After the water starts boiling, usually you boil them about 20 minutes, and then cool them, and you can eat them anytime you want, and they can even be frozen quite well. Julie will make the clam chowder, and it looks like our crabs are cooling now. What a feast. That sure looks good. And that clam chowder was absolutely second to none. We had an excellent feast of things we got from the sea, so that was so good. The next day we decide to go back and try it again. We move along the wall, along Depot Bay, past the little state park where they use for whale watching center, and back to the bay. We get the boat in, and we're getting ready to board and go out and see what we can catch today. They should be biting good, the tide's right, and so we're heading out. Some other people are rushing down to get in the boat and get out there and get those all-important crab pots in. The barnacles have crusted all over some of the poles that hold the docks in place. We get out to the area where we're going to crab, and it's now time to get baited up and see what we can catch. We'll move on out, get the crab pot ropes and the buoys out of the pots, and ready to go. From the calm, protected areas of the boat basin at Yaquina Bay, we'll move on up into the open bay. It's a pretty good sized bay with traffic, boat traffic all over the world coming in here. And so we'll go find us a good spot again today. The tide is right, and Joe will be going along with us. The nesting spots for seabirds and seagulls is at a premium, so almost any spot that looks like it would work will be used to nest in and raise their young. So the squawka seagulls will be common around the boat basin and around the bay for years to come. It looks like Joe will be in charge of throwing the pots out and retrieving them. One after another, he'll throw the pots out, and we try to put them in sort of a string so they'll be easier to recover. You just pull up along the string and run one pot in right after another.
Oh yeah, we've got
all 6 is about all that fit on this boat. Up the big ones. And this.
Since 6 pots are all that'll comfortably fit on this boat, we'll only use 6 of them, but that should be enough. If those crab are taking the bait, that'll be plenty. And a lot of people, there's the myth that you should use rotten bait, but that's not right. Crabs don't like that rotten bait. They like nice fresh stuff to eat. The rotten doesn't appeal to them as much, although some can be caught with rotten bait.
Fighting the current good, man? Yeah. Maybe a little too good now. There we go. I think we're gonna have to move out a little. We might be. You want these ones?
Yeah, they're good.
They're awful small.
Yeah, we cooked them and ate them last night.
Yeah, just a little bit. But we'll keep them in until we pull the rest of them, and then we'll see what our experiment yielded. And then see if we need to go further.
So what are you doing with this?
We're gonna check. We're gonna check to see what spot's hotter, what yields more crabs, and then cluster.
They're all little, though.
Well, I have some.
Really work the gauge.
Right in my hand. Want to get that in your
Well, just let it go. I'm not running.
okay, because you're
One way or the other is gonna.
One pot after another, we pull from the briny depths of Yaquina Bay as we move along under partly cloudy skies, trying to find the spot where the crabs are biting the best. We're catching a few now, but we'd like to get in a spot where we could catch more. But the crabbing maybe isn't that good in the bay, and so we just have to deal with whatever we can catch. And it's important to get a hold of them before they get a hold of you. If you come up behind them and grab them, they can't seem to get you with a pincher. And the pincher's the thing that'll do you the harm if they catch you. Well, we caught a few crabs, and now we're going to move on down under the bridge and check on Stephen and Dwayne. They're supposed to be down here fishing today. So we'll go on down and take a look. The outboard motor pushes it at a fair rate right down under the Yaquina Bay Bridge and down by the jetties that are built up to protect the industry of marine fishing and commerces like. And then we see there's Dwayne and Stephen casting out, trying to catch some of the deep swimming fish down next to the jetty of Yaquina Bay. They're casting out near the bay and catching some. They've already caught a lingcod and some sea bass.
It's submerged by water right now, so you gotta kind of watch out. I'll tell you. Okay.
Wayne's got one on.
Damn, Joe, where's yours?
I'm working on it.
We didn't have a net.
We
Julie
have a
wouldn't,
net, we don't.
Julie wouldn't let me.
We'll go buy a net. Our net's burned up. With all our fishing gear we've gotten in.
We got fish with us now.
I think it's got the anchor. No? It's got...
Or it's wrapped around the end.
It's got a good... maybe it's a certain length. I think it's 18 foot usually.
Oh, we did. Joe?
And there it is, a rather small lingcod, which they'll throw back. But the other one they caught was a lot bigger and nicer. And those lingcod are just absolutely excellent eating. But you're only allowed 2 per person, and they have to be a certain length before you can keep them. They take pains in unhooking the hook from the lingcod so they don't hurt him, and he can go back and swim in the waters of Yaquina Bay once again. Dwayne will measure him and then put him back in the salt water of Yaquina Bay. They're casting out near the jetty where it seems like the fish congregate, and probably they'll catch several more. But meanwhile, we're going back. It's time to check the crab pots again and see how the crabbing is.
Don't be very friendly. It's not just at all.
Ben will steer us under Yaquina Bay, and we'll move on up to where the crab pots are. Some cormorants and seagulls and various other seabirds stand at attention when we go past. They're nesting on top these pilings, so that's serious business for them. Seems like it should be a pretty fair place to nest. There's no way anyone can get to it to bother them, and they're here where they can watch. We go past a pier where there are several people always out there crabbing, and they do catch crab off this pier too, and it goes out there quite a ways. So probably it's not all that bad a spot to crab if you don't have a boat. We find the floats floating in the spot where we left them, and so we'll move up alongside, and once again Joe will grab them and pull them in. Looks like the tide is getting almost slack now, and so some of the rope is floating on the surface. Once again, The anticipation runs high as Joe pulls one pot in after another, and we're just hoping that we caught a bunch of keepers in it. But we'll bring it in and find out in just a little bit. Looks like there's some crab in the pot. Anyway, as it comes up, you can look over the side and see them in there struggling, trying to get out. And there's always a little bit of seaweed caught on the crab pot. And so we'll go through this and see what we've got in the way of keepers.
On a male or female?
Female.
What?
She just wait.
It's gonna bite you. Yeah.
There's a Japanese.
I'll name her this, but I don't think it's what?
There's a big female. Here's a red rat. Nice big one.
In some cases, you get the very distinct impression that these crabs don't really like to be handled. But they probably go up and down several times in their lifespan, numerous times. They just can't resist the bait, and they get in there, get lifted to the surface, measured, and thrown back time after time. You got to make sure you try to get them right by the back part of their back where they can't reach you with those claws. Those claws can be awful strong and can even bring blood. They'll hang on to anything they think they can hang on to. Looks like we might have about enough crab for the day, so maybe it's time to head in for port. We have a total of 11 aboard right now, I think. And then some of the red rock Japanese crab, we have a few of them. They're okay to eat, and they're an invasive species, so you can keep any sex and any size of them. And they're thought to be a little more iodine tasting than the Dungeness crab, but they're okay. Joe will man the steering wheel as we move through the boat basin and see boats of all kinds, pleasure boats, and even a few working boats from various ports along the Pacific. Joe will pull the boat up next to the dock, and Ben will jump off and run up and get the pickup with the boat trailer and bring it down to where we can load the boat in and be back on our way and get those crabs back to Annette's place at Depot Bay and get them cooked and start on our crab feast once again. If you eat a whole one of these crabs, that's probably about all you're going to want. Ben backs the trailer down the very good boat ramp. All this stuff is rather new. It never used to be anything here but just the beach of the bay. The trailer moves into position, and Joe will move up and load the boat right up, drive the boat right on the trailer. Then Ben will crank it up, and we'll be out of here in just a little bit. Then back to Annette's cabin at Depot Bay, where she's got everything fixed up to cook the crabs up good. And Pearl, Julie's dog, which is quite old, is watching after things while we're out fishing. Pearl thinks someone has to be responsible and watch after things at the home camp. And what better than a mean dog like that? And Joe's old dog, Jack, is here helping Pearl with the workload of watching after the place. We're working on this house and haven't, to the time when this was filmed, we haven't got the flooring down, but we're working on it and will soon have it completed. Jack, he's wanting something to eat for all his work he's done. That's pretty exhausting work, watching after things for Jack and Pearl, and so they're going to have something to eat here in just a little bit.
Girl, calm down. It's just Jack. He's a good dog.
The crows thought there was something fishy around, so they're showing up to ask for their deserved share of it. The next day, Stephen called me up and asked if I wanted to go fishing with him. So, of course, I wanted to go fishing. We'll put the plug in the boat, get Stephen's boat in the water, and away we go. We're going to try for some crab first and then some sea bass and lingcod. Out into the bay we move, where we'll be able to get those crab pots out and get them to fishing. Maybe we'll catch a nice mess of crab again. Out of the boat basin as we move at a very slow pace to get out of the boat basin. Then we can speed up a little and get up to the spot where we'll be crabbing. While we're moving along, we can get the pots all baited, and when we get there, they'll be ready to throw out. And so once we throw them out, we'll just leave them there and come get them at a later time when the bait has had time to attract plenty of crab. Kristen, Stephen's wife, will be along to help with the crabbing and fishing. A gentle sea breeze blows through your hair and across your face and feels pretty darn good early of a morning when we get out here. Now we'll get those all important crab pots ready to go fishing. And technology does play a part in crabbing. You look at the depth sounder and the GPS and find the exact perfect spot that looks like it might be would bring a crab in. It's best if the bottom is flat and level, and then the crab. Christian just sent the crab pot fishing, and now while we're waiting for the crabs to be attracted, we'll put some bait on and go down and try to catch a fish or two. Down by the jetty might be the best bet, so we're going to go under the Yaquina Bay Bridge where 101 crosses and go down along the jetty and try to find a really good deep spot where there might be one of the deep swimming lingcod or a sea bass, a rockfish of some kind. So we'll go down and cast our jigs out and see what we can get. There are numerous commercial fishing boats passing in and out the channel along the jetties, but we'll get in close to the jetty and cast our hook over right to where the rocks sort of end on the jetty, and there'll be a few rocks and a sand bottom, and hopefully we won't lose too many hooks. So we're going to give it a try and get it started as we see some commercial boats going in and out over the bar. Yaquina Bay is known as a very safe harbor. These jetties stick out far enough that they protect boats from the sea, but still you have to use some caution, and occasionally a boat does get in trouble on the Yaquina Bay bar. And when you do get in trouble on any bar, it's trouble of the worst kind, and it's not always that you get out of that alive. But we're not going out over the bar. We're going to fish right near the end of the jetty, though there's a good hole that sometimes on an incoming tide, it'll be really hot catching the deep swimming fish that we'll be fishing for. Salmon season isn't open yet, and besides, we like these bottom swimming fish even better than salmon. We can see the briny breakers coming in and breaking on the end of the jetty, so we'll stay at a safe distance from that. But it was a little bumpy there, and so we decided to go in a little closer and try our luck at a different spot. The well-tuned outboard motor carries us in at a very good rate. We're going to tie up and go to the bathroom and then go out and check the crab pots. There's a ferry boat pulling up to the fuel dock right behind us, and they're going to fuel up and go back on their way from San Francisco to Seattle. It was a big. After a real quick bathroom break, it's time to get out there and see if that bait has attracted any crabs, and it surely should have. The crabbing isn't really too bad right now, and we had some good bait on, so we'll go out and check it. Looks like it attracted plenty of those bottom crawling creatures, and so we'll sort through them and save only the ones that are large enough. Then we'll throw the pot back out again and go down and try for some fish. And what do you know, when we first get there, Stephen catches a nice lingcod. Wow, what great eating. And some of these are kind of a green lingcod with green meat, and they're especially good. I guess it just depends on what the fish is eating. So Stephen will take him out of the net and throw him in the fish box, and then we'll throw out there and see if we can attract another one to our jigs. We throw out cast after cast, and again, we're out a ways along the jetty, and there's just a nice gentle swell rolling here. But we keep that motor running. If a bigger breaker comes in or something, we can outrun it or get through it in a spot where it isn't so big. Another lingcod coming in. The unrestricted swells from the largest ocean of the world are rolling in here very gently as we make cast after cast to see what kind of fish we can catch. We like the lingcod really good, and the sea bass are great too, and sometimes we'll catch other rockfish of various different kinds. There, they used to be you could keep anything you caught and no limit on them, but now they put limits on them, like 2 lingcod per person and only 5 of the sea bass per person. But what a sight, seeing those breakers break over the end of the jetty and feel the roll beneath the keel of the little motorboat as we move in and out with the tide. Usually an incoming tide is the best because the fish come in to feed on the fish that are coming into the bay on the incoming tide. And every fish-eating seabird that you can think of show up here just in case a fish might drift in. And they can set on a perch up high on a rock along the jetty and watch over their empire as we're out here fishing away as best we can, watching those swells real careful to see that a big sneaker doesn't sneak up behind us. But if it does, we're out of there in a hurry. We don't anchor out here. It's just simply too risky. And there he is, our nation's symbol, the bald eagle, sitting on his special perch on the highest rock on the end of the jetty. And then we move in back under the bridge to check our crab pots once more. And we see several of the cormorants appear to be nesting on some of the old piling. What a good place to build your nest. No one can get to it. There's no problem with predators here. And then they can watch the water for fish. Well, we decided to call it a day and go to a net property at Depot Bay and start cleaning the fish. That's real handy, and there's even a refrigerator with a freezing compartment, so we can cool them down in a hurry. And wow, what a nice catch. Old Mr. Crow sits perched high up on a limb, wondering where his bits of scrap are. He'll preen his feathers a little, and then he'll wait till we have our back turned, and he'll come in and grab his share, what he thinks.
Come on down. Here's your fish.
Old Man Crow would just as soon wait till our back is turned, and then he'll call in all the kinfolk, and they'll come in and have 'em a real crow party. And they don't limit themselves to scraps if they can get away with it. Anything'll work. But we're working hard trying to get these fish filleted in a hurry, and then get 'em on ice so we'll have excellent quality of the very best of eating fish that the Pacific Ocean can provide, the lingcod and the sea bass and rock bass. Old Mr. Crow would settle for a piece of bread if nothing else. Old Mr. Crow, he's very sneaky. He'll slip in there, sort of sidestepping a little bit, thinking that'll make him less visible. And of course, he's not coming there to steal anything to eat. He's by far too good a crow. He's just gonna set